Sparkly Beans, it's Avery. If you're new here, I help folks who are passionate about liberation and justice to find themselves and their role in an emerging future. And one of the ways I do that is through tarot. So this video is going to be just a fun one. We're going to be doing Cardo Nancy's February Deck Love Challenge, which was actually an Instagram challenge where folks could post every day in February, but I am kind of trying to move off of that platform and more towards here and my newsletter. So speaking of the newsletter, be sure to subscribe below. There is a link down there, and that's where you get tons of like really heart-centered like long form content. It's not just like, here's the thing I'm offering. It's like real, you know, in-depth reflections and things that you can read. So check that out. Subscribe to the YouTube if you're not already. 2 different main methods to receive the content that I offer out there for free. And yeah, but today we're doing this deck challenge. So since I was trying to move out of doing things on Instagram, I'm just doing all of the prompts in one video. So we'll see how quickly we can get through this. I mean, hey, let's check and see how much battery I have remaining. Oh, I can't find that out while I'm filming, so we'll see how it goes. But anyway, this is a challenge by Cardo Nancy, who, let's see, I think you can actually, yes, Nancy has a website, Arcanus Tarot. I'll leave it below, but it's arcanustarot.com, so you can book with her. And we actually did Lindsay Mack's Tarot for the Wild Soul together. I think the first round I did it, and she was in one of my, or maybe actually like the court cards course. Anyway, Nancy was in one of my small groups, and really enjoyed getting to know her and then following her. And she has done this challenge, and we're gonna just go through some of the decks in this giant collection I have here. Which, by the way, like I always go back and forth between like doing a lot of deck content here and not. So leave me a comment with what you think. Deck content is super popular, but then at the same time, there's this feeling of like, oh, you know, capitalism and like supporting conspicuous consumption. At some point, I'm going to do a video, I think, about like what I've learned from collecting decks. But it's just to say that I totally recognize that I have a lot of you know, I have unearned privilege that has allowed me to have jobs in the past that have allowed me to purchase this giant collection of decks. And so I just want you to know that I know that, and also that if you see decks and you're interested in them, if you like them, if you want to know more, you know, totally like check out, you can link below to my website, queermagical.com. And I do tarot readings. I also do sessions, intuitive sessions, as a change doula, and just as an intuitive where we can use tarot as one of the tools. So I got live, I've got written and recorded readings, lots of options for ways to work with me. So if you're interested in having a reading with one of these decks, then that's an option that you can totally do, and you can request a specific deck in the form. So, you know, do that if you like, but also if you're like, I can't afford a tarot deck, I also can't afford a reading, then I hope you enjoy just like looking at some decks, and if anyone wants me to spend more time with one on a separate video, just let me know. My hope is that this is useful for folks who do buy decks and want to buy decks, and I actually find that, you know, one of the things I realized around deck content is that actually deck content sometimes helps me to consume less. And not saying that consumption, like not saying that buying is good or bad as a whole, right? It's very complicated. But one thing I've noticed is that when I spend some time like getting to know how other people have related to decks and like seeing the decks, then sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't want that after all. All right, so I haven't done these in advance. So we're gonna grab from the shelf. We're gonna read the prompts. We're gonna try to be quick, and just like show you a few cards to give you a little bit of information about each. So number 1. Let's get started. Number 1 is, what was your very first deck? Well, that one I know right off the top of my head. It's the Starry Cauldron. So I found this deck on Etsy. It's not a very talked about deck. These are the backs, and these are like really pretty. I think actually the backs in some way brought me in. You know, I like the cosmic-y feel, and the creator, who I'm afraid I don't have their name in front of me, but the creator said on their Etsy, like, this is really intuitive and it's meant to be read intuitively. You don't have to know anything about tarot. Admittedly, well, that may be true. Show cards while I talk. Well, that may be technically true. I needed to learn tarot first, but that said, these are really arresting images. So the Starry Cauldron, it's all watercolor. You can see it's got, the drips are used really, really creatively. I really love this. This is 5 of Cups, so you can see the kind of, like, I love the emotional impact of this. The way that, like, the movement of the brush strokes, but then at the same time, there's death. I either have to read it, just decide I'm going to read it with the interpretations I know, or just do a, like, straight up intuitive, which has worked really well. Ace of Pentacles does have kind of an allusion to pregnancy there, which is interesting. It's not the Empress. I'm trying to see if there's any favorite cards. You know what? If I do that, we'll be here all day. So we're just going to show a few from each and move on. So that was my first deck, Starry Cauldron Tarot. My most colorful deck. I mean, TBH, I have a lot of colorful decks. Most colorful. I mean, the one that comes to mind is the Playful Heart. I hope I'm getting this right. I always get confused between the Playful Heart and the names between the Playful Heart and the Heartful Spirits, I think. But I'm pretty sure this is the Playful Heart Tarot. So this is just real, color. We've got it. I haven't used this one a ton yet. Had it since it came out, but so I'm still figuring out whether it works for me, but it definitely has this, like, very playful vibe. I can see it being an inner child deck. I just haven't actually put that to good use. But yeah, so there's a range of animal and human figures depicted. So yeah, so that's the Playful Heart. Which has the best court cards? Okay, so for these, where it gets real specific, I will admit that my memory is not great. And I have a lot of decks, so sometimes I might be like, ugh. So I don't know if this is, like, the best of all time, but when I think of court cards, and I think, like, is there a deck that pops into my head, then the answer is the Numinous Tarot. And this one was one of the earlier decks I have, and has always stayed with me. They are renamed, but these court cards just really have a personality that I love. So the Mystic of Vials, this would be the King of Cups. Just gonna try to, like, find some courts here. Mystic of Tomes, King of Pentacles. So it's fairly diverse court in a number of ways. This Explorer of Vials is the Knight of Cups. There's no, like, gender, no particular direction. I recently saw a post. I need to read this post. I recently bookmarked a post by Elena over at Politics of Tarot, talking about I think it was like no courts, no masters or something. It was talking about court cards and the sort of, like, royalist implications of court cards, which I, in theory, totally behind, right? But at the same time, I have not found court cards to be as like, I understand all the ways in which people are like, oh, it's gender and we need to change this, and then I want to change, like, the court associations because they're hierarchical, like, all of that I agree with. And it's also just, like, so the way I see the courts naturally, that, like, I see Queen of Cups and, like, I don't think woman or queen, I think other things. But if you're someone who does have a challenge, then this deck is really good for that. Dreamer Bells is the Page of Swords. So I won't show you all of them, but I love this one. Creator of Vials. That's the Queen of Cups. So the creators are the queens, the mystics are the kings, explorers, knights, and dreamers are the pages. I was trying to find the one I did want to show, if I could. It's also like a disability representation in this deck, so this is the King of Swords equivalent, Mystic of Bells. I'm trying to find the one of the creator, Cedar, because there is actually a self-portrait of Cedar in this deck. And it's a court card, but I can't find it right now. Creator of... there it is. There it is. Creator of Tomes. So this is actually a self-portrait of the artist. Cedar. I just think that's cool that there's, but I also like, I really love that image, you know. I don't know Cedar personally, but like whenever I pull this, it feels really human. It feels like I want to know this person. Okay, oh my gosh, I'm gonna just keep saying that I'm gonna do this quickly, and I'm not going to, clearly. Okay, which deck inspires you to, most inspires you to learn more about its subject matter or another aspect? So that, I love this question. Which deck inspires you to want to know more? I think, actually, I'm going to grab a different deck. So, had to like walk out shop for a moment there because the answer to this question has got to be the Pacific Northwest Tarot. So this is actually over on my reading table. I didn't even think to grab my reading table, so I may have to do this again, but those decks. But this deck and this guidebook, which is deceptively just a little guidebook, but they're written so beautifully, many of them from the perspective of the animal or plant, whatever they're depicting. But the reason I would pick this for which deck inspires me to learn more is because it's local to me. So the flora and fauna, I moved to the Pacific Northwest in March 2020. So I haven't had a lot of chance to like do tons of like not super local exploring. Because Panini, but I'm really drawn to learn more because I think the land and the region itself, you know, are something that has really drawn me. And I want to be in more interdependence and familiarity with the other inhabitants of this region. So if you're local to Pacific Northwest, I especially recommend it. This has also just been an incredibly magical deck. I've been reading with it. I've been communicating with the land using this deck. And so I won't talk a lot about that practice because it is very personal to me. But, you know, I'm inspired to learn more about the specific avatars that the land has been communicating to me with. Okay, number 5 is show us your most worn deck. So I don't have one of those. I mean, there are a couple decks that like there was an issue in printing or something, but I don't riffle shuffle, so I don't do this kind of shuffling. I mean, I know how, I do it with playing cards, but I overhand shuffle, which isn't perfect. It does still mess with cards. I also I don't read outside. I'm terrified of messing up my cards. This is probably actually something that I need to work on, because I definitely like notice the ways in which kind of like purity culture, not just purity culture in the sense of like sexual purity, but like purity as like a virtuous concept of like Christian capitalist something. Like I've noticed all the ways in which like I don't like being dirty and stuff they're probably like internalized stuff. So that's one of those with tarot decks is probably I need to be a little less precious, but I don't have a really worn tarot deck because I'm very careful with my cards. Which is your cutest? I mean, I just showed y'all the Playful heart. I actually might say Crystal Unicorn, but I'm not going to get up to show you that. I'm going to try to only get up to if there's decks over there that I really want to show you, but probably most people have seen the Crystal Unicorn. It's pastel, Rider Waite, and it's probably the cutest. And I think I have a review on this channel. So I'll say that. Which deck do you always find yourself coming back to? That's beautiful. I mean, a lot of decks. I do notice that my interest in decks does sort of come in seasons. Sometimes the season's very long, like it's several years. But there are definitely decks that were like really constant old friends. Like the Numinous is a great example of that. I can't believe how little I use it now, but I used it all the time in the first couple of years of tarot. So if something I keep coming back to, I guess I would say, actually, I would say the Spirit Speak. So when I first got this deck, I wasn't sure how I would vibe with it. It's sketchier. It's a Mary Elizabeth Evans deck. It's sketchier than I normally like literally sketch art, and kind of abstract. Well, no, I shouldn't say abstract. I mean, it's concrete, but it's, well, you'll see. I didn't think this was my vibe, and then I used this for a class, maybe 2 years into my practice, and part of the class, it was Sarah Chapel. Sarah M. Chapel. I was trying to say Mick Chapel. That's not right. Sarah M. Chapel, who now does like holistic business stuff, but at the time was teaching a tarot course, and the prompts would be things like noticing, like what you see. And at first I was like, oh shit, I should have used a more traditional deck. But I actually found that paying attention to the little bits of this was really illuminating and helped me to be a more visual reader, more intuitive and like visual, like intuition from visuals kind of reader. And so I keep coming back to this because if I just need a deck to like tell it to me straight, if I just need to chat, then I often come to this one. And it's really just, yeah, it's like an intuitive thing. I can't necessarily say why, but it's a good deck. Which is your most esoteric deck? So I don't actually tend to be into the more esoteric. I'm assuming what that is meant by that would be like things that have like a lot of hidden symbolism, but like specifically like occult, or so I may not understand this completely, but I think it means like Benabel Wynn's deck would be an example of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, I think. And yeah, that kind of like symbology of that specific traditions isn't really my thing. So I'm not sure anything I have would qualify. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a pass on that. Number 8, your most shadowy deck. Okay, this is an interesting question because it's like, do they mean shadowy, like the deck itself seems shadowy, or I use it for shadow work? Because those might be different. But I guess I'll go with, yeah, okay. I'm going to go with the Night Veil one, but the older one. Whoop. So a lot of people know the Hayworth deck, which is a really great Welcome to Night Veil themed deck. Welcome to Night Veil. But before it, there was this one, and I don't know if it has a name now, like the Hayworth deck, if this is like the somebody else artist deck, but it's the first Welcome to Night Veil one. So here are the backs. And so it's very like straightforwardly shadowy. If you know Welcome to Night Veil, so I've been a Welcome to Night Veil fan for a really long time. I kind of fell off of it at the end, but I don't know, is it still running? Anyway, so this deck, I haven't worked with it a ton, even though I've had it a long time, because I keep wanting to go through. There is a place online where you can find like what each of these cards actually references, and because Night Veil is a audio thing, like there's not picture, right? There's not like standard images of these people and things, and so you might not get the reference right away, even if you've listened to it. It's also really long running, so it's hard to remember certain things. So I often will pull like when I tried to use this deck just out of the box, I was like, I don't even know what I'm seeing here. That said, I think it'd be really good for shadow work. And I've used it a couple times for shadow work, and it worked really well. And it is definitely shadowy in a visual sense as well, so you can see, you know, it's very horror themed, right? So even if you don't know Night Vale, I think you could use this deck just if you like that kind of like energy. But then you have beautiful things like this. So yeah. And one of the beautiful things about Night Vale itself is that, whoop, as a series, you know, oh, I love this one. Oh, there's like all these layers. Can you see that? I think you have to. All right, try to get it to focus, but I want folks who lip read not to lose my face, since I lip read and find that annoying. So yeah, Night Vale is very much about like, you know, on the surface, it's very like horror town, but there's so much like love and positivity and like weirdo love in it. So yeah, I would use that. 10, do you have a deck with no ugly cards and specified? You know how even the best decks have those 1 or 2 cards that are like meh. I mean, probably, but I don't know all 78 cards from every deck by default, so I'm not even going to answer that, because if I did, I'm sure there'd be one card that I go, oh man. So yeah, I'm going to pass number 10. Number 11, which would best serve as a majors only deck. Again, I think that's one where I had to pass because I just can't. One, I hate majors only decks, and two, yeah, I don't know. 12, which deck do you most want to change one thing about, and what would you change? So there probably are decks where there's like a specific card I would change, but off the top of my head, I think that would be hard to come up with. I would... I mean, mostly I think it would be aesthetic. So if I had to pick... I don't even know that I have a specific one. I think just in general, like there are some decks where I would want them to be borderless. There are some decks I would want to have better card stock. There are some decks that I wish had a guidebook or, you know, a better box situation. I don't think there's a specific one that jumps out to me. Which your decks do you wish you used more? It's over there again. I'm not going to grab it because there definitely is a full review of this, but the next World Tarot, it was my like second deck, I think. I've always been always, but like since I knew about Christy C. Road, I've been a Christy C. Road fan, and when I found out that, you know, there was going to be a Christy C. Road Tarot deck, I was really excited, and I got it, and basically it's just, it's like almost intimidating because it's so, the people in it are just like so cool. Or just feel real. It feels really like, am I worthy of this deck? So I don't read with it as much as I would like to. But I've been doing 1 card pulls from it recently to get back into it. Okay, which has the best story of acquisition, and tell us how you got it? Oh man, most of mine are just like I bought the deck. I unfortunately don't have like super great stories. You know, I have several decks that were gifted by my dear friend Catherine. But maybe not like specific stories. I mean, there's the deck I bought right before it went out mass market cheaper. The Tarot of the Crone. I totally paid way more money than I needed to. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a good... Oh, I know, actually, okay, so I just got this, I haven't read with it yet, but the Hollow Valley Tarot is the Hollow Valley. So this, I mentioned this challenge is by Nancy. Nancy and Davis and I were in a small group, and Davis Carr wrote the guidebook for this, and then Aaron Elise is the artist. So Hollow Valley deck of symbols I had already, and then when I found out that Davis was doing a deck and was doing a Hollow Valley deck, I was like, I have to get this. I actually even looked at the cards and I was like, I'm not sure, but then like just the fact that it existed was like I had to do it. So yeah, and then the thing about it, the story is that, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this early access, because you know I don't have a steady income yet in my business, and so I wanted to get the lowest possible price while supporting those awesome folks. This actually makes me think, I think this would pair really well with the fifth spirit, if anybody has that. So this kind of like a bunch of symbols like didn't necessarily appeal to me immediately, but it would pair really well with the oracle, and I just decided to get it. And then the morning that it was going on Kickstarter, it was like, I want to say 4 or 5 in the morning Pacific time. That often happens when it's, you know, morning Eastern. It's like middle of the night here. And so I looked at the date and was like, I can't do it. It's like a few days before my big trip to California that I was doing in the fall, and I was going to be driving for 12 hours. I was just like, no, I have to like have a sleep schedule for a few days before that trip, or else, you know, it was in the worst part of my chronic fatigue. Those of you who've gone through, heard about that journey with me. But what happened was I couldn't sleep. I can't even remember why, but it was like I had insomnia night or something, and it was just like the universe was like, no, you're gonna get this early access. So I was backer number 2. That's why this is a fun story. So I was backer number 2. I backed the deck. I didn't sleep. I had several nights of anxiety about the trip, but then I took the trip and nothing bad happened. So there you go. In fact, it was an amazing trip. So that's the Hollow Valley Tarot, which I believe, I'm not totally sure. They're shipping out Kickstarter, so I'm not sure if they're like currently taking more orders, but I think they're going to, if not now. Now we've got, which deck is your earthiest? Okay, so we're gonna do earthiest, airiest, fieriest, and wateriest. Okay, so earthiest, and I'm doing tarot, not oracle for this, just, I don't know why. It doesn't really say it's tarot, but I think I'm gonna stick with that. Earthiest tarot, probably, there would be some strong runners up in this category, like Brady, Tarot Fauna, pretty much all the like animal decks, but I love the Herb Crafters. Herb Crafters is like one of my top decks. And what I like about it, it's very place, land specific. It's about plants, but also it's specifically about human interaction with plants. So it's about, it's grounded in like curanderismo and indigenous practices, and like the ways in which the magic of working like with these plants and encountering these plants is a really unique system in the guidebook of, like, it's ordered by, it's a regular tarot system, but the order, which way have I been going? Did I show you that one? The order, I'm gonna like show you the same cards because I'm confused, is by number, not by suit. And there's like a very specific system of how the numbers relate to specific types of plants. It's so good. And this would also fall under the like decks that maybe you want to learn more. But yeah, it has a very, very earth-based feel. All right, then the airiest, I know exactly where I'm going. I don't have a lot of airy feeling decks, but the Fountain Tarot. So, Fountain Tarot, another one that's been in my collection for a while. In fact, I talked about this with Anna on, so I recently did a Blind Love Radio episode, which was really amazing, and I was just like channeling. So I think I would really like recommend that. If you're interested in just, hearing some intuitive channeling about like elements and practice in life and whatever, tarot specifics as well. But in the that was recently, I was also on Blind Love Radio a few years back. So if you look for the first episode that has my name, we talked about this. I think I had just gotten this deck and was talking about how I was surprised by it because I didn't, I wasn't sure about this like style, but it really conveys emotion, and I just find it to be very airy. Like it feels like it it can't stop moving. You can't slow it down. I think it's just like the way the brush strokes fall. And the color palette is, I guess, airy-ish. I don't know what an airy color palette would be exactly, but so that's the Fountain Tarot. Then if we go to Fieriest, I mean, that just makes me think, what's the deck that yells at me or that gives me like good sort of A? I almost think of that more than like the element of fire, but what would be fiery? I don't know. I'm looking. I'm like, I'm not fiery. I think I'm taking a pass on that. I'm honestly not sure. Yeah, nothing jumps out. So I'll go to wateriest. You know, I'm a very watery person. Watery energy is big for me. I would like to have more, like, specifically oceany or kind of water decks. But this is, you know, kind of classic. The Mermaid Tarot. Like, surprisingly good reader. Like, for something that has a very specific theme like this, sometimes those aren't. You know, it's just like, oh, colorful mermaids. But this one definitely has its own sort of universe and feel. But obviously, it's going to be watery. You know, some of them have kind of like a Disney princess kind of vibe. But, yeah. So that's the Mermaid Tarot. Which of your decks has the best back design? You know, I know people that are really into this. I don't know. I like a good back, but I'm not like gaga over it. So actually, you know what I'm going to say? I guess I won't show the deck because it's just the back. You'll see why, because it's very obvious. It's just black. The Tarot of the Holy Spectrum has matte black. And I like that because it's the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, so it's a spectrum of colors. So the fronts are all brightly colored. And I love the contrast with like a matte black back and a matte black edging. So I'll say that. Which is your smallest deck, like physically? It looks like this is the smallest of the minis. So I only have a couple minis. That are tarot. I mean, I have Lenormand decks and stuff, but whoop, let's drop them all. But when I saw there was a mini of the Many Queens, you know, I love the big full-size art for the Many Queens, but I just like the idea, honestly, of having a backup because this is one of my favorite decks, and I still think they work really well small. Like, I don't think you're like losing out on that much. By having it small. So this is just a good like throw in the bag. I like having like a super queer deck that I can just like toss in the bag. I also have the mini Next World, which is another super queer option. I have the Sun and Moon mini, but I honestly would rather have the full size of that. So if anybody has a full size and wants the mini, wants to trade, seems unlikely, but it's worth trying. My largest deck, which is my largest deck? I'm not going to show it because I have some opinions about some of the artistic representation and the way the creator has talked about it really give me a bad vibe, to be honest, and I wouldn't support, I personally wouldn't support this person again financially. But I think the El Goliath is my biggest deck, and I do keep it, I just don't really talk about it. I use it for personal practice. I sort of like disconnect it That would be an interesting video sometimes, I think, actually, is like working with decks where like you don't agree with the artist, or you don't agree with like certain things, like strongly, like fundamentally, but still find like magic working with the deck as its own entity. I think that would be interesting. For now, I'm not going to show it though. I'm just going to say it's my largest deck. Oldest or most historic? I don't have, again, like with the Esoteric, I don't have older. Well, I don't have that style of like Trio Fini de la Luna or what's the other, like Tarot de something, or like Marseille decks. Yeah, so I don't have stuff like that. So honestly, I have no idea what the oldest would be. Like, yeah, I don't have anything that's like really vintage. Like maybe the oldest has like been reprint, could be Thea's, but yeah, I'm not sure. Most unique or inventive deck? Oh God, I mean a lot of them, honestly. It might be the Tarot of the Silicon Dawn, which I have, I'm pretty sure, a full review, so I won't show it, especially because I don't want you to see it and then be like, because it's really out of print. But that deck has like a whole, it's got like extra suits and extra everything, and it's fantastic. Which of your decks is the most misunderstood, and what is it that others don't get about it? Most misunderstood. I mean, again, I think this comes back to like, how much do I know about what other people think, and like what, yeah, misunderstood. But I do know that a lot of people are not big fans, where is it, of this one. Now, a lot of people, this is their only deck, right? Like the Wild Unknown. So this is like the third deck I got, I think. It's to be like my main bog standard deck. A lot of people hate this deck. A lot of people love this deck. I mean, I don't know, misunderstood. I think it's just become, because it's such a popular deck, I think there may be this idea that's like, oh, this is just the Instagram worthy, like it doesn't have substance or whatever. And I just don't find that to be true. I don't know if that's what people think, but I find that like even like the, just like the feeling in this image of like container, the way that like the pips, even though they are pips, I get a strong like sense of the feeling of the card. So yeah, this deck feels like really powerful to me. And it's accessible, it's pretty easy to obtain, it's not very expensive. So that would probably be my misunderstood deck. Which traveled before this to get to you? Well, let's see, because I live now, I have to like think about where I lived when and I mean, probably actually West Coast to East Coast wouldn't affect it that much. Because I would assume it would be East Asia? Australia. Oh, Australia from here would definitely be. Yeah, so probably an Australian deck, but do I know which of these decks came from Australia? I do not. Yeah, I can't think of one that I'm like, that is definitely from Australia. I did recently get a deck from the Ukraine that took a while to arrive, but it made it. So there you go. Which has the best guidebook? So I haven't read most of my guidebooks. It's a very slow process of trying to use them, because I do love a guidebook, right? So I've honestly read very few, but I will say the ones that the two that I already mentioned, I'll say Pacific Northwest. Again, it's very short, but actually, let me just read you an example. So, like, some of these are from third person, some of these are from directly as if the image is speaking to you. So, like, let's do, actually, I know which one I want to read. Is it Queen of Cups? No, that's the Orca. Although I do like the Orca. What's the... Oh, I can't find it. I can't remember which card it is. Oh, wait, no, there it is. There it is. Yes. Okay. Oh, no, that's not it. This is hilarious. Okay, well, I want to find you a specific card, but since I can't remember which tarot card it is, I can only remember the animal. We're going to do Queen of Cups. So Queen of Cups is Orca. So there's some keywords, and then it says, the matriarch of the pod drifted placidly through her domain. Unhurried by the push and pull of stray currents, she propelled her hydrodynamic mass with measured movements. A stroke of a flipper here, a flick of her fluke there. Her watchful eye caught glimpses of the inner workings of her memory palace as she glided effortlessly past, a kelp forest of tangled memories, forgotten moments, darting away into the swaying green just before she could quite resolve their shapes. It goes on, but like you can kind of get, it's just really poetic. And then the Herb Crafters, just because I like the system a lot, it kind of got me thinking differently. And then it's a good blend of like talking about the imagery in the card, giving some practices with the herbs, talking about the card in general. Like it's just a good mishmash. Oh, and also, I should bring this up. Well, anyway, the Outsider Tarot, it's its own thing. It's its own kind of like take on the tarot, but the guidebook is phenomenal, and I'm going to do a review very soon of that one, I think. But you get like a quote from somebody who inspired the card, you get information about the imagery, the card itself, but it's also like every card goes along with this like outsider figure, and so you get these really cool archetypes, and then there's astrology. I don't know, it's a really good book. Okay, last deck I received would be, what did I get last? Because Hollow Valley was on the new moon. No, the full moon. The full moon? No, the new moon. Yeah, it was on the new moon. So what did I get? I'm having trouble remembering, but I want to say, I think it's actually the one that came from Ukraine, which is the Cocaine Tarot, which I'm not going to show because I kind of have it. It kind of has like a musty smell to it, so I'm just letting it. I mean, it had to get here all the way from Ukraine to where I live, where it's very rainy, and so I just let that sit there. It's not about cocaine, the drug, by the way. I mean, I think there's a reference, but it's yeah, just a general like kind of dark, or like it's like a kind of sexy deck, but like a darker side. So that's probably the last one, which took like a good year and a half to like whole Kickstarter. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say like I don't know the scenario, but it was a involved process. But I finally got it. And finally, the last prompt is which didn't get an award in this thing, but deserves one. So one more deck. I mean, all of them, but one more deck that I think gets something. The entire collection. Oh, you know what? Here, I'm gonna make up an award and give an award to the Modern Witch because I have found this deck. So this gets which of your decks is most useful for teaching and explaining Rider-Waite-Smith without having to have a Rider-Waite-Smith Rider-Waite clone. So this is mostly adheres to more or less the traditional imagery. It's modernized and it's much more diverse, but it still has the same, you can see like color palette and everything, so it's super recognizable. So yeah. Okay, that's the decks. So I don't think I'm going to try to like list these all below, but if you have any questions, if you're like, I can't find this deck, you can let me know in the comments for sure. Let me know if there's particular decks you'd like to see reviewed, and be sure, if you came over here from Instagram, be sure to subscribe, because again, I'm moving more towards here. And my newsletter, which you can find below as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.